Good morning, everyone. Great to see you. This is Imagination Online Experience, and today we are meeting in episode number 4 of Creating with Van Gogh. So far, we learned about different aspects of Vincent's artwork and style. In lesson 1, you found out more about the colors he used and you created the color wheel. In lesson 2, we discussed his most famous artwork, which is the sunflowers. And you created a collage inspired by this picture. In lesson 3, we talked about landscape. Yes, and you did an oil pastel resist landscape of a chosen picture in style of Vincent van Gogh. Great! You're doing so well. Thank you for sending me your pictures. Thank you for sharing them with me. I really love seeing photographs of your drawings, paintings, and it's great to see the progress you're making every day. So keep drawing, keep painting, and become a better artist. Today, in lesson number 4, we are going to discover a little bit more about Vincent himself. And we're going to do that through studying his self-portraits. Today I'm going to tell you also about mark making, and you're going to practice your own ways of mark making. So there are over 35 self-portraits that Vincent created in a very short period of time. Please remember that he was an active painter for only 10 years, leaving over 900 paintings in total. He was very productive. So all we know about him, how he looked, how he felt, how he dressed, we mostly know from his self-portraits, because there's only one single photograph of Vincent at the age of 19. Why do you think he painted himself so many times? Do you think he was vain and he loved himself so much he wanted to paint himself again and again? Well, not really. Vincent was quite poor and he couldn't afford to pay a model who would pose for him so he can practice his artistic skills. Therefore, he used a mirror, and this was the best way to practice and become better in drawing and painting people. When he lived in Paris, he painted the majority of his self-portraits, 25. In a period of 2 years only, he created so many pictures of himself. Wow! And this was the practice. He experimented with new ideas. At first, his self-portraits were quite dark, just like his very early work. Like this one, The Potato Eaters. It's really dark and rather gloomy, nothing like the sunflowers. In his later work in Paris, he met other artists and saw the paintings by the Impressionists and also artists that painted in a style of pointillism, such as Seurat. And this influenced his new and fresh style that became lighter, more colorful, and made of small brushstrokes. So one of his self-portraits, painted in 1889, is this wonderful image of Vincent as an artist. Yes, he is showing himself as an established artist. We can see that he thinks of himself as a serious artist. He is holding a paint palette in his hand, the brushes, and also, have you noticed, what is he wearing? Well, yes, this is an overall, a type of apron that artists would use to cover their clothes while they're painting. His self-portraits tells quite a lot about his personality. He very often presents himself serious, with a concentrated look on his face. In his portraits of himself and other people, he wanted to express their character, which is achieved mostly by color. He used complementary colors, even in portraits. So when you look closely at this picture, you will see there's a lot of red and green, which are the complementary colors. For Vincent, accurate likeness weren't the most important. More important was the passionate expression showed in color, brushstroke, and also thick layer of paint. That's what creates his own unique style. In his self-portraits, he also shows his weaknesses. He portrayed himself during the illness, just after the incident when he cut his ear off. And when he returned from a hospital, he immediately painted himself with the bandaged ear. That's a very interesting picture. You can see it in London at the Courtauld Institute of Art. And he depicts himself in his studio. Behind him, on the left, there is a blank canvas showing that he's ready to go back to work. On the right, there is an image of one of his Japanese prints that he collected, showing a great love and great inspiration by the art from the East. When Vincent lived in Arles, he made friends with the postman Joseph Roulin, and he painted and drew him 6 times. I really love this picture of Joseph done just in ink and pen. You can really see the brush strokes and the wonderful mark making he did on his clothes, on his face, and on his postman's hat. He was a really good and supportive friend, and Vincent became a guest in his house very frequently. I would like to show you 2 paintings, 2 portraits of Joseph Roulin. They both have wonderful floral backgrounds, and the colors are striking, as always in Vincent's late works. You can definitely recognize the inspiration of the Japanese art here. The same applies to the portrait of Augustine Roulin, the postman's wife. The title of this picture is La Bosée, meaning lullaby, or it's often called Woman Rocking a Cradle. And it's because it indicates the rope in the sitter's hand. Can you see the rope that the lady's holding? Yes. So the other end of the rope is attached to a cradle where her little baby Marcel is sleeping. I love the background here too. The vibrant greens and the big floral pattern makes it really unique. Vincent also painted all 3 of their children. Armand Roulin, in his striking yellow jacket was the oldest son. He was 17 when painted by Vincent. He also became the main character of a film that I highly recommend you. A film that was entirely painted. It's an animation, but instead of drawing on the computer or by hand, it has been made of oil paintings. The other son, who's 11 years old, is Camille Roulin. And the little baby Marcel has been painted twice. Also once with his mom on her lap. Vincent sent this portrait of the baby to his brother Theo. It was when Theo's wife Jo was pregnant, expecting their first baby. Jo replied in a letter, "I like to imagine that ours will be as strong, as healthy, and as beautiful as this one, and that his uncle will consent to do his portrait one day." I wish he did. In today's activity, I would like you to practice your skills in mark making. Mark making is an advanced way of coloring in. Rather just using lines like that, you use different types of marks and lines. And I'm going to show you how to do that. When you open your page, your book, on the mark making page, you will see some examples I did for you. We have cross-hatching, we have some little lines going different directions, we have circles looking a little bit like bubbles, and then triple lines going different ways. So you're gonna receive your little exercise sheet, which we're gonna together fill in with examples of mark making before we continue to the main project, which will be filling in this portrait of Vincent with different marks. On your marks, get set, let's go! Okay, everyone. So we talked about the different self-portraits Vincent van Gogh painted. And I really love the swirly pattern that you can see on the background of this work. Can you see the waves surrounding his face from all the sides? Right, so that's what we're gonna achieve today through a technique called mark making. Right, everyone get your books ready. Open on the page which is called mark making. So you're gonna fill in this page with different marks, but first we are going to practice that
on our exercise sheet. So this is what you can do. You can do different marks with a pencil or with coloring pencils, like I did here. So mark making is about making different lines. So you can start with using pencil and making lines going different direction. You can maybe try doing zigzags or maybe these wavy lines, or you can even try something like that. It looks a little bit like fish scale, but it's filled with pencil lines. Then you can do some wobbly straight lines. Oh, I quite like this one. It works really well with filling in different large surfaces. I want to share some more ideas from lots of mark making I did. I really love the weaving technique. It's a little bit like basket weaving. You do 3 or 4 lines one way and then 3 or 4 lines the other way. This is really well known, called cross-hatching. I'm sure everyone knows cross-hatching by now. Filling in your surfaces with little circles looks amazing. Takes a lot of time though. Here are some other ideas too. I quite like the wood effect as well. Then we also have some little swirlies, lines going in different ways, mini clouds. This is like brick wall. So here are lots of examples of mark making, and I'm just going to show you a couple of these. So you will need your example, your exercise sheet, or you can also do it in your book like I did here. There are some examples I did for you, and you can draw some squares below and add more examples as well. This is one of the versions of the almost finished mark making self-portrait of Vincent van Gogh. You can see that every surface has different mark making on. Okay, so let's start. As one more suggestion for you everyone, if you really like colors, you can also do mark making using colored pencils or even felt tip pens. But it's a really good way to start with a plain pencil. Okay, so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. I'm gonna use a black pen. Okay, black pen. So one of the techniques you know really well is cross-hatching. When we do lines one way, like that, filling in the whole square, and then lines the other way. That's cross-hatching. Let's have a look again at this incredible swirly background. Shall we try to do some swirly shapes? Look at that. Okay, that's the swirly one. I really like doing little lines as well. It's a great way of mark making. Invent your own marks. Invent your own way of filling in spaces. Okay, and now I promised I'm gonna show you how to do the basket weaving. So the basket weaving consists of 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, and then you do 4 lines the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. You can also do 5 or 3. The important thing is that's the same number. And now we had a vertical line. We're gonna do a horizontal line. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the same way, continuing. Try to keep your lines the same length. Okay, and a few more rows. And it looks really, really cool. Doesn't have to be perfect, because when you fill in the whole space, you won't see the little mistakes you've done. And I think this is gonna be my final row. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Done. Very good. So here are some examples, and I'm just gonna do a few more now. And the last one. Okay, this is my mark making ready. Okay, now we are ready to start coloring in Vincent van Gogh's self-portrait using the mark making techniques that you just learned. I'm going to do it colorfully. Here I used 3 colors, purple for the body and the hair, orange for the beard and the eyebrows, and then some orangey yellow swirls for the background. In this picture, I may use more colors than that. Make sure, if you're using pencil or coloring pencils, that they are nice and sharp. Then it will be easier for you to capture all the details. Okay, so for the background, I think I'm gonna do this swirly pattern, and I'm gonna use the same shade of blue as Van Gogh used. I'm just gonna do lots of lines. And try to make the lines as close as you can. I'm using the side of my coloring pencil to get nice thick lines. Yes, that's the background. Now I'm gonna use some orange for his hair. So the hair looks really great if it's made of little lines, just like real hair. So you can try making the hair of little lines. Van Gogh's hair was red, orangey red, so that's why I'm using this lovely vibrant color. There's an interesting story about Vincent's eyes, because we don't really know what color his eyes were, This is because he sometimes painted them blue, sometimes he painted them green, and sometimes brown. Okay, the beard is also made of small lines, and the moustache too. How's everyone doing? Okay, now let's go back to... So that's how the head looks like. Now I'm gonna fill in the body with some different mark making and different colors too. So I quite like the swirly mark making. It's really just doing some swirls, smaller and bigger. It looks really nice and it's quite fast. I'm gonna use some red now. And I'm just gonna do simple, straight lines. Just trying to make my lines very close to each other, like that. I can always decide to do cross-hatching if I want to. Or just leave a stripy pattern on his clothes. And the other side. Perfect in the middle. I would like some zigzags. And I'm gonna fill in the stripes with more stripes in purple. So it's gonna match the color, the collar. Yeah. You don't need to do them all over. You can choose some parts that will be covered. Right, now we need something for the skin. I'm gonna use this yellowish and I'm gonna do cross-hatching with very light, very light lines of yellow on his neck and on his finger holding the paint palette. And now the other way, because it's cross-hatching, yeah? So very lightly, so he doesn't look too yellow. His ear and his thumb. Perfect. I'm gonna do his eyes green. So just color in this little ring around the black dot. And the paint palette, I'm gonna do in brown. For the paint palette, I think it would look really cool to make some swirls. And then you can also add some paint on top if you want to. So he used a lot of yellow. And he used orange. Greens. Because he painted a lot of nature. And you definitely can see a lot of red and blue. So this is Vincent's self-portrait holding paint brushes. And the paint palette. That's Vincent by himself. Colored in by me using mark making. I hope your activity went really well, and I would love to see your ideas on how to fill in pictures with mark making. Well done, everyone.
I would like to share with you 3 self-portraits that Vincent painted in the last year of his life. Actually, all 3 were painted in 1 month. They're very different. One is the self-portrait with the paint palette. One is a very unusual picture, not very often seen. And the third one is the self-portrait with the blue swirly background. All 3 are very different, although they're showing the same person painted in the same month. Vincent really liked this one. It's unusual because it's showing him without moustache and without beard. He liked it so much that he decided to send it to his mother and sister so they could see that he's in a good spirits. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Creating with Vincent van Gogh, where we discussed his portraits and self-portraits. I'm really happy that you joined in and discovered new ways of mark making. Why don't you include these new skills and create your very own picture? It can be a landscape, still life, or why don't you do a portrait? Have a look at this wonderful portrait made in pen and ink by Vincent van Gogh of the Postman. What he did here, he used different ways of mark making to create various textures. So he's using lines for the beard. He's using cross-hatching to show the shadow underneath the postman's hat. He used thick lines of black ink to show the texture of his heavy coat. Without using any colors, just black ink and pen, Vincent achieved a really striking effect. Why don't you try drawing a portrait of a person you know? You can ask someone from your house to be your model. You can draw your pet, your dog, or your cat. You can also work with a photograph and draw someone that is far away, or maybe even someone famous that you admire. Why don't you think of drawing yourself? Then you need just a mirror and you can be your own model, just like Vincent. You can do your portrait using just pencil and different ways of mark making, or you can use colors and incorporate all the lovely complementary colors that Vincent used a lot in his pictures, just like here. Blue and orange, yellow and purple, red and green. Yes, I'm happy you remember the complementary colors by now. Use pens, pencils, paints, maybe even you can paint the portrait on canvas with acrylic paints, if you have those at home. I would love to see it next week. Thank you for joining me, and I'm really excited because next week will be episode number 5, and we will summarize all what we've learned about Vincent van Gogh.